Hey everybody, this is David D. Hilser. I am live, making sure everything looks good. Yep, microphone looks good. Got my earbuds on. So if you are interested in joining me, this is David D. Hilser on my Friday night science video uh, discussion. You can join me live if you'd like, or just participate by saying hello in the comments, asking questions in the comments, because I will look at those. But very happy to be here. And let's start this off with, as they call, a stinger. Hey, it's me, David D. Hilster, and welcome everybody here tonight. I have been doing this for the last couple of weeks, and it's turned out to be pretty good. Had some good discussions. Actually, some people have joined in live with me, and you can join in live if you'd like. How do you do that? Well, you just go to this address, live.dissidentscience.com, and we are using StreamYard, and StreamYard allows us to bring somebody on the air, and I can certainly do that and have done that. And if you want to discuss something with me or ask questions or have a debate or talk about something that you find interesting, that's what I'm here for. A lot of times I will be talking about some articles that come up to start sort of people's interest in some type of topic for the night, but I do have something to look at. And so articles to do, and I've been, of course, working on videos and some ideas for no videos. I've taken a couple months off, but there are plenty of videos there. I think, well, I have over 200 videos now, if I do recall. So absolutely take a look. You can find those, of course, on my Dissident Science channel, and you can get to that by going to youtube.dissidentscience.com. And you will go directly to my channel. In fact, I should have something like that here. I'm not sure I do here. Let me put that down for you. Bring that up. youtube.dissidentscience.com. Put that up there. And that's where you can go. And you can check out my videos. I've got lots of them there. So do check that out. Of course, also you can go to my father's YouTube channel, YouTube particle.guru. As many of you know, my father and I have been working on a model. In fact, we will be getting together in December for finally finishing the book and getting that book out there. So, but again, if you want to visit my channel, go to youtube.dissidentscience.com. Also, you can check out my documentary film. It's very entertaining. It's online via Vimeo. It is a real documentary that took me 8 years, and with a real soundtrack. Actually, the music's by Michael Ruggieri, a really great composer, a friend of mine. Really entertaining film. So if you want to check that out, yes, EinsteinWrong.com. You can go there. I think for $3 you can rent it, and $10 you can purchase it and watch it anytime you want. It's all online through Vimeo, and we did have investors. That's why it's that way. I don't put that on for free, because of those guys who actually helped me out, and it's greatly appreciated. And of course, you can send comments for those on YouTube or Facebook, and you want to talk or make any comments about what I'm talking about, or any subject you want, have any questions you have for me. But I'm going to talk today about, start out with an article. I always look at some interesting articles. I'll bring that up right now. And there's always something in the news that's stimulating. And this one's a good one. It's from November 14th, actually, so I try to keep up to date, get some articles that in fact are up to date. And again, if you want to join me, you can just go to live.dissidentscience.com. What happens is you will come into the waiting room. I will see you there. You don't necessarily have to have a video. Some people want to remain anonymous because, of course, this is not exactly mainstream science. Some people have reputations to protect, but I have no problem talking with you, even just with audio. But so you are welcome. And again, say hello, say where you're from, and can put your comments on the air. And I do know I'm live and it is working, so I see that. I've got my email on my phone here, just to make sure. But it is interesting that we are starting to get some cracks and people who are looking at the problems in mainstream science. And you can see here one of the articles, and he talks about a top cosmologist's lonely battle against the Big Bang Theory. It's funny because if you really talk to most physicists, who are most of them, 99.9% of them, that's not an exaggeration, are not theoretical physicists. The idea of a Big Bang, not a Big Bang, it's not such a big problem. It's only in the people who, in fact, are those who are more in the mainstream and trying to defend something they've learned, whether it's right or wrong. Anyways, I do have somebody here already. Let me get them on, get their comment on the screen here. It is interesting. Sabine just posted another video today about global warming thing. Yeah, I did see that, and I did watch it. It was very interesting. It's one of the topics people do talk about, even though I'm much more from the physics and cosmology theoretical side. That is a question we get a lot, or I get a lot as well from friends of mine who know I'm into science a lot. And yeah, it's interesting to really see the science behind it. Also, the fact that if you do watch my film, EinsteinWrong.com, in it I do quote from a study of 3,000 scientists about scientific misbehavior. And it was an anonymous study, and they, in that anonymous study, said that 1/3 of the people who were in that study, again, they didn't have to put their names, admitted to changing the data to fit the conclusions they are looking to make. And of course, that goes for pretty much anyone in the field, I believe. A lot of fields are that way, especially ones that are much more, that are harder, such like climate change or temperatures of the Earth, plotting those things. And I know Sabine has interviewed one of, I think she went to England, and I'll look that up and we can take a look at it. But well, I can actually do that now. But let me take this guy down here and take a look. Sabine here. And Sabine, for those who you don't know, Sabine Hossenfelder is a person who wrote a book called Lost in Math. She was I think I have I think I do have a video myself. Let me go and find that as well. I did do a video on Sabine Hossenfelder, Lost in Math, her book. Quite interesting because she was a theoretical physicist, and she left theoretical physics to write the book Lost in Math. And of course, let me see if I can find her, Sabine. Yes, Times article. Oh, that's right. It was actually from a Times article. So let me, whoa. I've got to make sure this is live, so I appreciate people's patience. But let me get rid of this. Oh, not that one. And bring this up. I will share this screen with you. And there we go. And this is, let me take that down. I forgot. I've got to play through the commercials here. And this is the video that I made about her. It was a Times article, and that's where I learned about her. And learned about who she was, and she wrote this. You can see me back then. I'm wearing the same shirt, my goodness. But this is a video, again, it's The Uncertain Future of Particle Physics. It was an article where I really first learned about Sabine Hossenfelder, and she literally left the Large Hadron Collider disillusioned because she was seeing that people were looking at the beauty of math and not necessarily doing physics. So that disillusionment led her to leaving particle physics. I think in 2017, wrote this book in 2018 or 2016, 2017. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on the years, but it is really quite amazing for anybody who is that high up to have walked away and then to write a critical critique, Lost in Math. So again, she is. See if I have a picture of her. Probably, maybe not. Maybe in this one I didn't, but I did talk about her in some of my other videos. But again, she has this new video out on global warming. If you go to her channel, you just go to YouTube and search for Sabine Hassenfelder. Sabine Hassenfelder. But let's see here, videos. There she goes. Let me do that. Search here. And we go to the videos. There she is, YouTube. And I can bring her up there. So here she is in her YouTube channel. She does try to, she's sort of, in some sense, turning into a science evangelist, but hopefully not. She's a little bit more critical, a little bit more technical than most. A lot of the science evangelists, in my opinion, like Neil deGrasse Tyson and, Bill Nye, the science guy, Michio Kaku, those guys are really in it for, more fame than they are and just parroting what science says, mainstream science, or what I call big science, big physics, big cosmology. They don't question it. Sabine Hassenfelder at least does question it. And the video someone was mentioning here, Sacryptex, is this one here. And I don't know if I have the audio for this, but we can take a listen to it a little bit. Let me remove that, make sure we do have audio, because you have to press a certain button to do that kind of stuff. Again, learning how to do all this, so we should be good on that now. And let's take a look at, listen to some of this and see what she says.
About climate models. Tim, on the weekend I read this article in the New York Times that was titled "How Scientists Got Climate Change So Wrong." And it was mostly about weather extremes and said that climate change has been much more abrupt than climate scientists expected. And I was wondering if that's really the whole story, because I kind of remember that people were talking about tipping points and unstable equilibria already in the 80s. So I was a little bit surprised about this, and I thought maybe I should ask you what you think about this.
Well, the first thing to say is it's kind of interesting that now, for decades, having been attacked by the climate skeptic stroke denier community that the models are somehow useless, now the attack is coming from the other side, saying the models are somehow too conservative and not telling us enough about the extremes. Now, I guess there's a couple of points to make here. The first thing is, from a scientific point of view, most of the focus of the model predictions has been of global mean temperature. And the reason for that is sort of, because that's the basic thing that increased carbon dioxide is doing to the atmosphere. It's increasing the surface temperature. And by measuring the global average of this, what you're actually doing is measuring or predicting a quantity where the signal to noise is maximal. The signal being the effect of the carbon dioxide forcing that we're putting into the atmosphere, and the noise being the internal variability of climate, the fluctuations that really have nothing to do with increasing levels of CO2, but just arise from the natural chaotic variability of the atmosphere. So when we go onto global scales, this the chaotic variability is actually at a minimum, and the impact of the CO2 forcing is at a maximum. So from a science point of view, that actually is a very kind of robust indicator of how carbon dioxide is changing the climate. It's warming the global temperature. And actually, I would say that the models from the 20th century through to the present day have been remarkably accurate in predicting the rise in global temperature. So from that point of view, I don't think the models have been, underestimating the effect of carbon dioxide on global warming. However, when we come to talk about more regional extremes, so things like particular heat waves, could be over Europe or United States, or flooding events, or intense hurricanes or tropical cyclones, or indeed, as you say, kind of tipping point types of phenomena, then you're dealing with a situation where the internal variability of the atmosphere is much greater, and the signal therefore, relatively speaking, is smaller. So it becomes a more difficult statistical exercise. But on the other hand, this is exactly what people want to know. I mean, nobody physically is affected by global mean temperature, but they are affected by extremes of weather. And I think basically what the article is correctly pointing to is the need, now we've established beyond doubt, I would say, that humankind is warming the planet. We need to think in much more detail and much more accuracy what this implies for regional extremes of regional extremes of weather and climate. So there are two issues here. One is developing the sort of statistical techniques where we can be confident in saying that such and such a weather event or a climatic event had an anthropogenic component. In other words, part of it was due to the fact that we're increasing CO2 levels. But it also puts very much an onus on climate models to be able to simulate these extremes well. And actually, that's an area where I think we can still improve things considerably. So I think that the article, I think it sort of exaggerated some aspects of the issue, particularly in relation to global mean temperature. But it correctly drew attention to the fact that we do need to focus much more on our ability to simulate and predict and assess how extremes of weather and climate are being affected by climate change forcing.
So speaking about the quality of the predictions, you told me something about this figure 9.8 in the IPCC report. And this took me forever to understand, but I will try to summarize what's in the figure, and then you tell me if that's about correct. So what you see in the figure is the temperature anomaly for a period of years. And so the temperature anomaly it's the global temperature, basically, up to a reference value. And this reference value on this figure is in the yellow region, which is from the years 61 to 1990. And so all the thin squiggly lines are the predictions from the different models. And the red line is the average from the models. And the three black lines are the data from different organizations. And so what I didn't understand forever.
Well, just to correct you, it's not the data from different organizations; it's how different organizations analyze the data to, the common data sets to produce estimates of global temperature.
Yeah. So what I didn't understand forever was what's this little bar on the right side where it says mean temperature. So that's the actual temperature, the absolute temperature that these models predict in this region from 61 to 1990. So basically it tells you that the spread in the absolute temperatures is much larger than the uncertainty, the little squiggles in these models in the whole region where they have data. right? So I think what this figure tells us is that the models all agree that there is a certain trend, looks pretty good, in terms of forecasting. But it also tells me that, the models have some difficulty getting the absolute temperatures right.
Yeah, it just highlights the fact. I think perhaps it might be worth backing off a bit here and saying that these models are attempts to represent the climate of the Earth from pretty much first principles, from the basic law.
Okay, everybody. I want to let that go on and on and on. But basically, they're looking at an article that said, did scientists get climate change wrong? It's from a New York Times article. And they're talking about it because they're looking at, well, why are we getting extremes? I'm not going to go to this article. I'm going to bring it back down again. And I think one of the things that people do ask me a lot is about the climate change. We do have people in our group of obviously that go against the grain of mainstream science. And one of the things I do believe in, and when people ask me, is that we should have an open debate because we have so many studies, and we actually have such a visceral and such a strong opinion about global warming. People politically have become sort of science Nazis, is what I call them. And that's basically people, if you don't believe in climate or increasing temperatures because of human interaction or human activity, then you're considered to be crackpot. You don't believe in science. And this is the whole problem in general we have. We need to allow debate. I'm not here to say what's right or wrong, but we certainly need to allow people to voice their opinions and have these debates on the table. Again, in my movie Einstein Wrong, I show a study by the University of Michigan who says, in fact, a third of all the papers written by these 3,000 scientists had said, in fact, that they do manipulate the data that they're talking about to sort of match what they're talking about. So it's going to be the case that you're going to find people with different opinions about this, but we need to have an open debate and stop telling someone who thinks climate change, these are stupid words. First of all, climate change, the climate's always changing. The question is the global mean temperature rising? Is it because of human activity? There's a lot of evidence that points in that direction, but then of course there's also a lot of evidence these things have happened in the past. But regardless, my point is, just like this channel and just like our group, we need to allow everybody to have their opinion about it and actually talk about it. So I do congratulate Sabine. Sabine, I can't remember if someone knows German. I think I'm saying that wrong. She is German, but I call her Sabine. And she is taking on this topic because it is a really hot potato. And anybody who even opens the idea that, again, I'm not going to say climate change, but the idea that humans are affecting the temperature of the planet, that they don't believe in science, and that's just absolutely not true. I am a person, if you ask me, when people ask me about this subject in general, the way I look at it is human beings are destroying the planet. That we know. We know we're, a third of our land around the world's made for creating, for raising meat to eat, and those things are just polluting and just destroying our planet. We're cutting down 90% of the rainforest in Brazil. I lived there for 3 years. I know there's a lot of deforestation, and one of the number one things for doing that is raising cattle, which of course is not the most efficient way to feed people. You can feed 22 people for the same acre of land who are on plant-based diets versus for instance, animal. But the way, I look at it is we need to look at us destroying the planet, because that isn't good. Yeah, it'd be great to go to the planets. That's not an excuse, but I think we need to, number one, you're talking to a person who thinks we need to have open debate about this. and we should stop being science Nazis. Anybody who believes that we're human beings, in fact, aren't the ones causing global warming, and they have data and they have papers to show this, they should be able to do so, and do so without being punished. So let's go to, I see people are waking up here. Let's see, fluorescein. I don't know what that is. It's not sure if the link will post, but what are your thoughts on ferrocell.usa? I think I've had somebody ask me about that. Let me see here. ferrocell.us. Let's see, exploring the optical properties of ultra-thin film fluids. Ferrocell, okay, let me put this up here and let you know. Oops, is that the, nope, I gotta do this again, sorry. Let me remove that. Still learning, folks, how to do this. We'll go to the climb, and there we go. Bring that up. So here we go. This is ferrocell.usa, the original ferrocell lens. Ferrocell is a passive device utilizing superparamagnetic properties of nanomagnetite. It's a dynamic lens that reacts with light and magnetic field to create a highly refracted 3D view of. So I would imagine you're looking at magnetic fields. Oh yeah, of course. Isn't this? Yeah, I've seen. There's a. Yeah, this is with what is his name again? I do know about him, and he sells these ferrocells. Oh, here I do have an opinion about this. It's I think it's an absolutely great tool. First of all, I think you have to be very careful about your interpretations of what's there. Again, you have to have a model of the universe and a physical model at that, in my opinion. And if you don't, then you're just guessing. What you're guessing at is what you see, because why these lines appear in these directions, are they really from something that are in those directions, or are those the result of the interaction? What is it? What are magnetic fields, et cetera, et cetera? My father and I, in fact, have a model that has physicality to magnetic fields and everything. I'm not saying that's got the answer, but I'm saying that, in fact, you got to have models to be able to interpret this stuff. So is this a great tool? Yeah. If you have a model of the universe, then that model of the universe should be able to explain what's going on here. It may not be easy. This may be hard to hack, as I say. But absolutely, this is pretty cool stuff. So I think my dad and I are hopefully finishing our book in December. And we do talk about magnetic fields. We believe the Denis effect from Lionel Denis, his underwater experiments show us basically a physicality for magnetic fields. And of course, how this actually works would be something you take your model, whatever model it is, apply to this, and then try to explain it. That's the way I would look at it. I think, again, we get into real trouble when we try to explain these things without having models of the universe, because you can say what you want about them. You can make conjecture. You can make up all kinds of things. The same way we do with electronic circuits. We have an incredible amount of very good mathematics and equations for electrical circuits. My father's an electrical engineer. But of course, what's really happening physically with them doesn't mean that what we see or our interpretation of it is really what's happening physically. So that's my opinion about this, but I think this is a fantastic. So my rule to you is take this, if you want to explain it, apply whatever physical model, and that physical model has to include what magnetic fields are, all those things. Otherwise, you're just playing with mathematics, and that's cool too. But I think the problem is when people look at these things and then start making interpretations of the physicality of the universe without even knowing what those things are made of. Again, they're lines. This one, for instance, are the lines going? Are they going perpendicular? Or let's say if it's particle flows like we think it is, are they going perpendicular? And these are just happens to be lines through the middle of those flows, or actually are those flows themselves? What model are you using? That will be the answer. So I hope that helps a little bit. Again, like I said, if you start talking about the math and give me a fancy vocabulary for what's going on, I'm going to say, okay, tell me what a magnetic field is. And if you can't answer that, then everything you're talking about is just conjecture. It's just mathematics. it can be useful. The mathematics for electronic circuits are absolutely amazingly useful. But I'm a person who wants to know how those things work. That's why that's why I do this channel, because I'm tired of mathematics. It's not because I don't know mathematics. I got a Bachelor of Science and Advanced Calculus, so I know mathematics. I love mathematics, but it's not the end all and do all. So, anyway, very interesting question, Johnny. We'll go on to some more questions. Let's see here. Hey, John, what do you think about the leak that shows Jeffrey Epps? Oops. I'm not going to do. Let's go on. I'm going to talk about. I know there's I got to watch these before I put them out here. Here we go. Dave, I've been thinking about explanation tectonics. I think you mean expansion tectonics. Sometimes I believe so. And gravity mass shifts in the past. Your thoughts on the durations of these occurrences drawn out by millions of years or more rapid, about expansion tectonics and gravity mass shifts. I don't know. I haven't thought about that, but I think all the evidence shows more of a steady increase and steady. It's actually exponential. If you go to wiki.naturalphilosophy.org, you can go and see expansion tectonics, and on that page, written by Dr. James Maxlow. Let me go to that page right now. We can see, if you look at his Earth, this is quite amazing. This is all the Earths. This is present day, going all the way back. You can see, for instance, the Jurassic. I think this is really interesting here. Let's just take a look at this. I'll bring this up a little bit bigger, hopefully. Come on, there you go. And you notice here the if you can see I probably should get a better pointer. I can change that. But you can see that movement there. That's today's. And if you go back here to the Jurassic, now look at the size difference. We know, you can tell just by instinct, that the size at the late Jurassic and the early Jurassic are much, much smaller, and that's why the dinosaurs were able to be so big. That's Stephen Hurl. But the idea, if you look here, is that it's a pretty steady movement. It's not actually it's more exponential. Let me take a look at that. I'm sorry, I'm going to yawn. Everybody else is going to yawn tonight. It's it started at 9 o'clock. Try to get the East Coast not too early. Here you go. Here's the one we're looking at here. And you can see here that the increase is very slow here, and then it's going up exponentially. It's interesting. You can see the water here and the core mantle boundary. And this is the prediction. This is what the continental crust. This is very interesting. This one dot here is extremely important. That's when the continental crust ruptured. And all this water that you see beforehand, where is that water? Well, they were in shallow seas and swamp. Remember, whenever you see these recreations of the dinosaurs in their era, etc., you see them in swampy marshes and that kind of thing. Well, the continental crust starts breaking up here, and as the continental crust is breaking up, you can see more and more water. Just look at the difference between those lines, and that's what it is. This line isn't the water all the way down to the bottom. It's just imagine that's a ratio between water and land. And you can see up here now we have a great ratio. But again, those are showing that the water is being manufactured inside. But what I see there is I don't see. I do think that this data is pretty well backed up by the data, the geological data, obviously, Dr. James Maxlow. And you see this is not a steady state, it's exponential. So, but it's steady in the sense that you don't see it in catastrophic jerks or anything like that. Again, that's from what I have been gathering, reading about this area for a while. Let's see, we have some more. Water vapor causes greenhouse effect. That's by, Yeah, that causes, but actually methane turns into is a much higher greenhouse gas. It comes from the methane really comes more from the immense amount of animals that the bigger animals that we like to eat. They produce an incredible amount of methane, and actually that methane eventually breaks down into CO2 and a lot more than, so the methane is a much higher level gas. If you want to read about that or look into it, just look up methane. Look up anything that has to do with, I think it's in Cowspiracy. Cowspiracy is a documentary about us raising animals and its detriment effect on the planet. It's now, I think it was Mike the Vegan talked with one guy who was an engineer who was a consultant to, I think it was Cowspiracy, but it was one of the documentaries. It may be another documentary on us eating meat, but he says it's actually over 80% of the greenhouse gases is caused by the production of meat. So that's been recalculated. Of course, the meat industry will tell you much, much smaller. So let's see here. RGB cell, feral cell. Let's see. I go back. Don't skip. Oh my gosh, there's lots of stuff going on here. Expansion tectonics. Excuse the previous. Yep, that's all right. Yeah, the gesture for meeting somebody. Blip. Guy doesn't even. Okay, watching streams at the same time. Okay. Listen to. All right. But yes, models don't agree with reality. We're talking about models. In general, that's a problem. Is we don't have a lot of models, especially in physics. I don't know if you're talking about the global warming or not. But flipping through here, let's see here. Totally nonsensical thing. Duplicate. I find it interesting that the debate has changed from industrial pollution to human cause. Yeah, I think again, what I would stress is that humans are the ones who are creating problems on planet Earth, and we're going to get ourselves into trouble with that. And I think that's one of the things we can do much better. And if we get away from global warming and then get away from, I mean, let's face it, we've only gone up a degree in 100 years or something like that. And they say, well, in geological time, that's humongous. But instead of us looking at that, even global warming, they said there's going to be some problems with that if the temperature goes up to certain degrees. But we are destroying the planet in much bigger ways, in my opinion. Okay. The problems is the banks. Yes, that's one of the great problems. Greed in general. So let's see here. Hey, hi Dave. Do you know if scientific records for magnetic field strength of the Earth are being kept somewhere? They are kept in the magnetic, the striping of. In fact, that was a question I had for Dr. James Maxlow, but I think it's up here. If you go here, let me. Sorry, showing you guys an empty page, but there's magnetic. There we go. We do have records of it. It's if you notice that if you look at the seafloor beds, you get these normal magnetic polarity, reverse magnetic polarity, and that's the and one of the things I'd say is, and I asked James Maxlow, is there a case that it goes in one direction, the magnetic field goes in one direction more than the other? But regardless, we do have records of this literally in the rock itself. So there's a lot. One of the problems is because we do not subscribe to expansion tectonics. That in fact we do not look for things. We do not get records. There would just be literally tens of thousands of dissertations and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of new papers and new scientific work that could be done if we finally just say the Earth's expanding. Let's accept that, and then really start to look at data. So, Yeah, I mean, there are records in the rocks about that, and again, how strong they are. Those are good, darn good questions. But the problem is that we don't have people paying attention to it because there's no reason really to pay attention to it. So I mean, people are still stuck on plate tectonics, which is so broken. Let's see. I wonder if the Antarctic problem. I wonder, do I have that here? Don't know. Did I add that to Antarctica and spreading? No, I don't think so. I'm going to take this down and see if I can find it. There's a really good graphic from, I think, Samuel Warren Carey, from his book. Samuel Warren Carey. He's sort of the modern geologist for expansion tectonics. And let's see, Antarctica and Antarctica. And let's see if we have some images about that. Antarctic spread. I'm looking for it. You know, it's so funny because I have that memorized. I know exactly what that looks like, and I am trying to find that Antarctic spread. I'm not finding it yet. I'll bring that up when I can. Let's see. Antarctica. Come on. I'm looking for the fault lines around Antarctica. Maybe I can put it that way. But they don't show it very much because the reason they don't show it is because it's very damning. Now, I've had this in numbers of papers I've even written, and I am not finding that right away right now. But I can bring something up of Antarctica and then show you guys. I'll just show you a map of Antarctica, and let's see, maybe I can just search on that. Antarctica spreading plates. Come on. Okay, there we go. That's not the one I want, but that's pretty interesting. I'll take a look, take a show with that for you. Well, let me go down. Nope, I'm not saying it. I think I may have been. Oh, there we go. That's even a better one. It's not theirs, but I will bring this up. Oops. Make sure. There we go. All right. Here, I wanted to show you. This is one of the arguments. The problem with plate tectonics is that if you look at these lines that are around Antarctica here, those are all the fault lines, the plate fault lines, and that's where expansion is happening. So if you look at Antarctica, you have expansion going entirely around Antarctica. Now, if that's the case, the only thing that could be happening here is this is getting bigger. If the bottom part of the Earth is getting bigger, then you have to say, and there's no subduction, you'd have to somehow subduct that, meaning that would have to be shoved under somewhere else, and it's not. This is the reason they don't talk about it. This is the reason you don't read about it in geological books, because this is a huge problem for plate tectonics. So that's quite interesting to find, to look at that. But again, Samuel Warren Carey has that in his book. I do have his book. I don't know if I have it around here. Let me see. Very famous book of his. I got it. Oh, guess what? I found it. Great book. If you can get this book, super highly recommended. Theories of the Earth and Universe by Samuel Warren Carey. And it's in this book that, in fact, has that. And if I go flipping through it, I can find it. So I'm away from my mic. Watch it be in a. No, I'm pretty sure it's in this book. Here we go. Found it. There we go. Okay, what you're looking at there is the Antarctica, and if you notice those fractures there, the spreading. That's the South American spreading, the Australian spreading, the African spreading. You have a problem, folks, as they say in NASA. We have a problem, and that is, if that is happening, then how can you say the Earth's not expanding? It says, let me just read a little bit about it. In fact, this is in this chapter 13 called the subduction myth. It says, spreading ridges around Antarctica, but there's no subduction zone within Antarctica to swallow up the new lithosphere growth. Lithosphere is the new growth of the sea floor. It's actually the sea floor bed. So those of people who want to espouse a fixed radius of the Earth there's no answer to that one. So that's just gives you an idea. Let's go forward. I'm going to read some more here. Agreed with the visitor's treatment of the Earth as we contribute in overall time climate change. Okay. Alrighty, I'm looking at some more of these. Again, if you want to join me or converse with me, you can come on to live.dissidentscience.com. If you're so brave. They're talking about the feral cells. Let's see. So the video of RGB feral cells, secret of magnetism, bending light with magnets, and the plane of inertia. Again, folks, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say it again. That's why I'm here. I'm your science therapist. You have to be really careful, because here's what you're saying, bending light with magnetism. Here's my question. What's light? Oh, okay. You don't know. What's magnetism? Oh, you don't know. So how is it you're making a statement that by bending light with magnetism? How are you making even that statement? We have to be able to explain what those things are before we can really start saying what's happening. That's the same problem we have with Einstein's general theory of relativity. Here we are, we're looking up in 1919 in Sobel. Sobel is the place in Brazil. Eddington, an astronomer, an English astronomer, went down there to show that when he measured the starlight during an eclipse, that they would actually be in different places, even though his experiment was probably much more of a failure than really a confirmation. They took that as a confirmation. Einstein became super famous, and of course relativity, took off and all that stuff. Here's the problem. Then you go fast forward to Dr. Edward Dowdy from NASA, who then goes and measures the stars, and sure enough, the starlight is bent close to suns, but he found out that it was the corona that seems to be bending them, not gravity or space-time or whatever the heck it is. And outside the corona, the stars were actually in the correct place, even though general relativity said they should be in a slightly different place. So the problem with all of those things is saying that gravity bends light is we don't know what those things are. We make predictions about those things. We see things we think are correct and support it. And then when we really look at it closer, it doesn't support it. So what we have to do is say, this is really cool. It looks like it's dealing with magnetism. It looks like it's dealing with light. It seems like one interpretation could be bending of light with magnetism. But what happens, people get so enthralled and so married and so dogmatic about their own findings that they in fact start making statements. And these should be very, very, very qualified with, well, one of the interpretations of what we are seeing could be this. Okay? Again, this is a super thing. My dad and I love this kind of stuff. In fact, I talked with my dad over lunch just yesterday. We were talking about our model in the book, and I said, look, we've got to really explain how our model explains. One of the big mysteries in science is, do magnetic fields move with magnets, spinning magnets? And our model says yes, and we can explain why we think it is. And whether or not there would be any type of effect or delay. But regardless, it doesn't matter, because if you have a model, our model could be completely wrong. It doesn't matter. At least we have a model, and that's what we say happens, and this is the real physical explanation. If you go to the person on the street, they're going to say, oh, that's nice, but what is it? They're going to say, oh, so we know what light is? Well, it's a photon. Oh, I thought it was a wave. Oh, it is a wave, but in what? Is there an ether? No, there's not. Got to answer all those questions. Would you explain your view of magnetic field? Yes, I will. The way you can I can explain it is to go to YouTube, and this is the inspiration. It's based on what I call the Deneau effect, Yonel Deneau underwater experiments. So if you go to Yonel Deneau underwater experiments, you'll get to these. I've showed them several times. In fact, I believe you guys can hear audio on this, but these are two spinning.
So that they repel each other. This force is obviously due to the water, which is set in a motion of rotation. Let's start the motors now.
Yeah, so what's happening is he has two small cylinders in his kids' pool, his kids' pool, inflatable pools many years ago. This is almost 10 years ago, and he has them spinning. And when he spins them in opposite directions, in the same direction, they repel. And if you let's see if I can go to the part where they attract.
Heard that cylinders rotating in opposite directions, submerged in water, attract each other.
So what he's showing that is when you have the two rotations submerged, they attract each other. So submerged when they go. So two cylinders moving in. And now he does this also. And unraveling the nature of magnetic field. This is what I believe is. When I saw this was one of the huge epiphanies. And so he shows the magnetism, and he says what it is. It's actually flowing ether. We say it's particles in our model. But basically what happens is in these underwater experiments, right here, he has them spinning. It's very hard to do this experiment. He's literally got them hanging with weights, and they are acting just like magnets. When they go in opposite directions, they attract. When they go in the same direction, they repulse. And he's showing down below the exact same thing. You can see them go, and then they attract. They hit, and then get into attraction. He's standing in a pool, filming this underwater. You can see it actually turn, and then they attract. So this is what I call, I'm sort of the person who decided to call the Deneau effect. And the Deneau effect, I've shown this before too. Maybe I can find it on my drive here. I think I can. I'm going to show you a diagram of what I've come up with, a physical diagram of what the Deneau effect. And that's what we think magnetic fields are. So I'm going to go and show you that. I'm going to go to get you some of my illustrations from the book, which I have, of course, just in regular graphics. Please bear with me. I'm sorry, some of the people who've already seen this. The particle model. And I've got lots of really great graphics. And there, of course, is the Antarctica one. And when I need to go to it, let me just show you. Here we go. This is a Deneau attraction, and let me get that on the screen for you. Again, I call this the Deneau effect. Oh, well, I may have to do the whole screen because it doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't grab this, but this is fine. I can just grab the whole screen here. You should be able to see it. There you go. On my computer there, this is the Deneau effect. So what happens is, when you have the particles moving together, let's say these are two atoms, the reason they would attract in this case would be because the flow of the things going around the atom would be in the same direction. Or if these are magnets, the flow, in this case, either ether, if you're an etherist, or particles, like in a particle model. I actually wrote the program to generate these sort of randomly going around in a circle with the little lines. The lines are sort of like velocity. That's the Deneau. Again, it's David D. Hilster coming up with this, so no, you're not going to find these in science books, but I think this is one of the most important findings in science in the last couple hundred years, one of the most, not the only one, but one of the most. And then, of course, the repulsion happens is when these particles collide and you get a chaos there, and those things will tend to drift apart. So that is what we think magnetism is. It's not pluses and minuses. It's not in an electrical field. We don't believe, a lot of us don't believe in that. So that's my explanation, not only mine, but it's really Yonel Deneu's explanation. It's something we've incorporated into our model. And Yonel Deneu is an etherist, so he just says it's ether flowing that causes that. Ether, of course, would be also something through waves through ether are light. So according to etherists. What do you think about the whole flat Earth stuff? Well, the whole flat Earth, I've said this before. We talked about this extensively, especially last week. Basically, that was started out as a prank. This was not something real. I do know that because I talked to some people who talked to the people who started the whole thing. It was meant to be sort of a crop circle thing where let's see if we can take something that, of course, no one believes in and see if we can build up a case for it. It's more of a prank. It's more of a rouge. It's something like that. But what's happened, though, is unfortunately people look at that and think that people actually believe that, which almost no one does, really. And then the people who want to keep us from criticizing Einstein, the Big Bang, particle physics, and relativity, all of those things, they are very happy to point to the flat Earth people and say, look what the internet does. And they would maybe accuse me of being a flat Earth person. I don't care what people think or not think about it. If I had a student says I want to prove the Earth is flat, I would say go for it. Give everything you can. Look at the information that you have, and go from there. Do I personally think it's flat? No. Again, we have a model of the universe, and our model of the universe doesn't show that the light around you have a spatial problem where when you go in a direction, why do you come back to the same place? That's the only problem with the flat Earth. So you travel in one direction, do not move north or south, right or left, and go in perfect straight line. You're going to, depending on where you're on the globe, if you do it right, it will come back. But again, I see it more as a way for big science, big physics, big cosmology to distract everybody and point to people like myself and the tens of thousands of dissident scientists. For instance, we have almost 10,000 people who have shown Einstein wrong for so many different reasons. And of course, this is used more to point out, people like, oh, you don't believe in global warming, you're a flat earther, you don't believe in science. And that's just really bad. And that politics is done on purpose to keep us confused, like a lot of the politicians do those kinds of things. So, warning about its effect on the past. I think this question, Tommy Bird, was about expansion tectonics and its effect on past mass extinctions. There is an answer to that, and it's in the most important book ever written in geology, and I believe it's even a chapter. Here's the book, Beyond Plate Tectonics, Unsettling Settled Science, and let me see here. In this book, I believe you can get it in the United States now. It's a must-read for every scientist. I don't care if you're a geologist or not. It's got a lot of stuff in it that's not, but the expanding Earth touches on everything. Let's see. Metallurgic evidence, paleoclimatic evidence. Okay, here we go. Chapter, Tommy Bird, chapter 17. Oops. There it is. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at the chapter, the chapters. Anyways, I'll read it to you. Chapter 17, Extinction Evidence, page 307, 7.1, Endovisian extinction event. 7.2, late Devonian extinction event. 17.3, end Permian extinction event, 17.4, and Triassic extinction event, 17.5, and Cretaceous extinction event. So he talks exactly about that, and the interpretations by James Maxwell are just extraordinary. As I said, he's the greatest geologist of all human history. I don't think there's even a close. Methane breaks down in the atmosphere very quickly. Very true. Let's see here. Going back, I'm trying to, my goodness, lots of, you were wrong, Dave, and go to, oh, wow, okay. It cannot build up. Oh, yeah, no, methane doesn't build up. Methane goes up there and it breaks down. So you and I are in agreement. Maybe I didn't clarify myself. Absolutely. So, yes, he said, you were wrong, David. Well, I said it wrong. That's what I said. Methane is a harsher green gas, but it does break down. I'm just saying that it's not just CO2. So absolutely. This is so untrue. Well, Axeman, you're wrong about that. Absolutely not true. In fact, if you want to read about real science and real you go to, let's see, I think I have it here because people do talk about diet. Nutritionfacts.org. Come on, don't I have that here? I don't have it here. Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. So go to this website. You want to read about the real science. We talk about it. The people that you see doing that are on vegan diets. What I'm talking about is a whole plant-based diet. Vegan diets, you can die of heart disease. In fact, vegetarians themselves have about the same incidence of heart disease because they eat things like oil and they eat things like sugars, processed sugars, and they eat things like processed rice, and those things beat apart your biome. But the nutritionfacts.org has real studies, and there's only one diet ever in the history of medicine to be shown in clinical texts in clinical studies, to reverse chronic diseases, and those are found in blue zones around the world, were 5 places. Unfortunately, Okinawa, Japan is now losing its blue zone status because people are eating crap there. So please, saying things unfortunately like that do not make them true. So please do your science, look it up. I've read a lot about it. That's how I reversed my heart disease. That's why I'm today heart disease free, and I used to. So please be careful. Science, don't just talk. All right, awesome. I haven't seen this before. Yeah, I was wondering about the catastrophic past. Okay, cool. Simulationargument.com. What are your thoughts on the concept that we could be living in a computer? Oh, I've already talked about this one. No, I think these are here's my answer to this. This is just a symptom of us not being able to come up with models of the universe. This is a symptom of us not knowing what the heck gravity is. This is a symptom of us not knowing what light is, and people getting frustrated with it. So they say, well, we don't know what it is. Maybe it's all simulated. We have models now. The energy wave model theory by Jeff Yee. You have the infinite ether theory, the infinite universe theory by Glenn Borkett. You have the particle model by my father and I, and there are many different types of ether theories out there as well. They're not as complete, but those are some of the big ones. No subduction period, I agree. You can see the actual movement lines represented in the seafloor. Probably looks like mass, especially the ridges. Yep, absolutely. There are subduction a little bit that's going on, and the reason is because the Earth is not expanding uniformly. In fact, I believe I've got actually a video. I'm going to have to find it, but this is James Maxwell. He says that the Earth expanded like this and then like this. But I can't do it. I got to get him to do another video and send it to me. He shows you the Earth isn't expanding uniformly. In fact, if you look at the let me do that then. We'll look at the ridges. If we look at the wiki, go back to my famous expansion tectonics page, and we look at there we go. Oh my goodness, I've got some errors to fix. There we go. All right, good. That one works. All right, let's take a look at this. I'm going to see if I can get this bigger. There we go. Over a little bit. Up a little bit. Okay, you can see this. You can see the ridges quite good. I want you to pay attention to this Pacific ridge. You can see this is all in the middle, so it's going. But notice what happens when it gets along the coast of the United States. It goes under the United States. So most likely, we have things going on here that are not the same. Obviously, if you were to continue this, this would, all of this new stuff here, you notice we have another plate breaking out here. This is where we have the Antarctic. So if you follow this line all around, of course, the whole Antarctic is spreading around the Antarctic. But if you look at this here, look at that ridge going up along the coast. So along here, you probably do have some subduction just because of the direction of it. It's coming out in this direction, but there's probably a little bit going in the other direction. So I think that's something that, to say there's no subduction at all, very little, extremely little. In fact, if you are the most optimistic about subduction, and now that I know where that is, I'm going to find that. Oh, am I? Oh, I'm on the whole screen share. So yeah, let me see if I can find that. Here we go. I think I have. There's a map where we show. Here we go. Found it. All right. So this is a really interesting map for answering your question here. And that is, if you take a look at this. All right. These are the known subduction places on Earth. Okay. Or they say they're subduction. Now you compare that to all the other lines that we just saw. There is not even close to 30% and these subduction lines are really generous. They are super generous. So these can certainly not swallow up all the expansion going on, not even close. So again, it's just really pretty much ludicrous, this idea that the Earth's not expanding. It's, to me, I will bet everything I know in science that of all the dissident ideas out there, that expansion tectonics is absolutely a fact, in my opinion. Let's see here. It shows who is smarter, or Stephen Hawking? It's not important who's smarter. It's people who are critical thinkers and who can change their minds when there's evidence showing that something is. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, there's quite a lot. I am so far behind, folks. So sorry. I may go backwards on this. Explain dielectric. Here's the answer to that. Explain what electricity is, explain what light is, explain what gravity is, and then let's talk about dielectrics. It's like saying what is charge. So again, the reason I don't get caught up into that world is because I'm not interested. I'm interested in a model that explains how the universe works. So if you're looking, if people are calling something a dielectric, then what is the behavior of what's going on, and I'll explain what's going on. And at that point, dielectric won't matter because we're just going to tell you what mass is moving where to cause that kind of behavior. Awesome. I think beginning to understand your views more. Okay, cool. As a flowing particles flow or something similar. Yeah, it's really interesting in our book. What we are doing is we're adding, our particular model adds 3 things to Newtonian physics. One of them is infinity, meaning there is no such thing as the smallest particle or the big structure. Every part has a smaller part, infinitely down, and then of course infinitely up, the same thing. That's one thing. Second thing is the Deneau effect, which I call the Deneau effect. So now you know who are around here. If you don't know, you can rewind here or just look up Nell Deneau underwater experiments. That's the other thing. And the third thing is my father's model for light, which is basically, let's see if I have that. I can show you that. I think I've got a good graphic. I don't know if I have it here. I'm going to try to find it. It's what light. Yeah, there we go. All right. And then the third thing is my father's model for light. So I'm going to show you what that is. Extremely simple with two very simple diagrams here. My father, I think this is one of the great discoveries in science, in my opinion, which is basically a model for light and gravity. This is gravity. It's just random particles flowing in a direction. They are actually flowing in all directions, but when you have the push, but this would be gravity. It's just random particles. They would be flowing in all directions, but we're going to just look at one direction. And here's light. All light is your shower turned on massage. And you can see here that you have waves of particles. They're all traveling at the same speed. So our model takes Newtonian physics, which is basically the only thing in the universe are moving masses, and they hit other masses. That's the only thing that the universe is made out of. No matter what level you're looking, look at the Earth, two Earths colliding, or two billiard balls colliding, or two nucleuses colliding, or two electrons colliding, whatever you want to call, and then adding the infinity, the Deneau effect, and my father's description of what light is, which is basically waves traveling together. I think we have some bombers as well. That's pretty cool that I also use. Do I have that around too? So that's what our entire model. Yep, there it is. These again are illustrations from our upcoming book. This is what light is. In fact, it's pretty messy like this. Basically, it's just particles. Those are all planes, but they're not flying in different directions. They're flying in the same direction. So imagine those are particles. We call them G1 particles. You have to call them something. To us, gravity, light, electricity, magnetism, and electrons, they're all the same particle. They all travel at the speed of light. So the only difference is that they travel in waves. And so if I put my hand on your shoulder, like this is what I do when someone asks me about my father's model for light, I put my hand on their shoulder and I push down on it. I said, that's gravity. It's a constant force. It's the accumulation of things hitting at random and just a constant force. And then I start pushing on it in a rhythm. That's light. That's all it is. It's just so that's our model. Is it right? No. Is it wrong? No. It's a model. So the good thing is we don't go around claiming that it's right or wrong, and we're not dogmatic about it. So which is good. Right, and it's great view. I like it, but what causes the flows? Well, all mass is in movement all the time. It's just a matter of it running into other masses. That's the only thing that can happen in the universe. And orbits are caused by that. How? Well, then you have a gravitons or light and gravity. We call them G1 particles going. There's one field, which is gravity is basically a field of the same particles, like particles traveling in random directions. And that causes a gravitational field. Electricity, magnetism is just the flow of particles in the same direction. And what causes those is a level down that causes them. So if you push something like inertia, what happens is pushing through a field of particles. And if that field of particles happens to be flowing, then you're going to have magnetic fields. Or if they happen to be contained in a structure like wires, then you have electricity. Or if those if the particles are moving all together and they're coming to you in waves and not randomly in the same direction, then that is light. So what causes that is mass is always in movement. There's no such thing as any mass that's standing still. If you say that this is standing still, this mouse is standing still in my hand, you are wrong. It's flying around the universe in a million different ways. If you look at every atom in this, it is massively moving very fast. So nothing is at rest. That's one of the things. I guess it's a Borkert. I would say that's part of Borkert. Stephen Hawking's was the mouthpiece for failed science, desperate to keep their funding. Yep, Hawking got rich on the process. Hawking got rich because he had an interesting human story. Einstein became famous because he was the prototypical. He became the mad scientist. There was no mad scientist before Einstein. Mad scientist comes from his hair. I actually did a video on Carmen Miranda and Einstein. What they have in common, they had their hair. Carmen Miranda wrote Brazilian, well, actually she's from Portugal, but grew up in Brazil, and she put fruit on her hair and went to Hollywood, and anytime anybody puts fruit on their hair, they're Carmen Miranda. Anytime anybody puts a crazy wig, it's Einstein. The idea, it just stuck into the human psyche that a person who is super smart, supposedly super smart, that they don't even take care of their hair. They don't care about those things, they're just thinking. And of course, Michio Kaku actually looks like Einstein, and that's not a coincidence. I mean, that is not, it's not a coincidence. Let's see, they got a crippled back. Well, that's, I mean, unfortunately, that's identity politics. But what I would say is not so much racial, it's more of ego than race. So, and they come in all it shows you is egos come in all, human beings are egotistical, and they want to become famous and be known. And that's why if you, one of my really good articles on Science Woke is an article on exactly that, what I call science evangelists. Let's see, have you ever Googled blue zones debunked? Yes, I have. But again, what I would counteract all of that is with the China study. Look up the China study, read about the China study. It's the largest undertaking of, I don't know, it was a billion. It was millions of people and their diets and its correlation to disease. And it clearly, absolutely shows, who's debugging, who is debunking the blue zones? Big Ag. They set up, what happens is big agriculture and including animal husband, the people who raise animals, those people fund these, actually create these nonprofits that look very innocuous. They look very, just like, oh, they're just a foundation and we do these studies and, oh, look, it shows blue zones. No, if you go and look at those blue zones debunked, what you find is that the actual money behind it is the food industry, who is not interested at all in changing the way they are. But also, did you notice that this week the largest dairy, the largest dairy producer in the United States is filing for bankruptcy? Those people who are in dairy now, who are getting rid of their dairy cows and planting almond trees. The facts are at nutritionfacts.org. So quit. Again, I'm going to tell people, quit making stuff up, quit looking at things without investigating it. Read science. Nutrition Facts is run by a guy a doctor of medicine, and he has a team of almost 100 people who read every nutritional scientific paper that comes out. They find those with double-blind studies that actually do real good science, and the facts are the whole plant-based diets are the healthiest diets that exist. It wasn't invented. It was found in the blue zones, and those people writing against the blue zones, of course, are people from the industry, disguised under some. Okay. Magnetism arises from electric currents. Okay. Okay, here we go. Fossology. I'm your science therapist. Let me tell you why this is not a good question. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. First of all, I appreciate the question. I'm not getting on you for that. Let me tell you why the words and the way we use words aren't the way what's really going on and how that gets in our way. If magnetism arises from electric currents, what's fossology? Could you tell me what magnetism is? And not only that, tell me what electric currents are. And then once you do know that, then you can answer the question. Again, I'm going to go back to my particle model with my father, our particle model, because we actually have a physicality of magnetism and electric currents. Guess what? In our model, they mean they're the same particle. So electric currents are simply G1 particles that are like electrons that go around the nucleuses, but are guided through by the nucleuses of atoms through metals. Metals have the property of allowing G1 particles to flow through them. Just if you lined up a bunch of suns and then you shot comets through this arrangement of suns that stayed in certain places, then you could make a tunnel and those things would flow. That's electric currents. Magnetism happens to be the flow of G1 particles around a magnet, and that flow. In fact, you want to get some answers. At least here's one of the answers. Well, it may be the only answer right now we have, because other theories, other models do not talk about it. So go to youtube.particle.guru. My father just talked about 1 week ago. Listen to his our model. He'll talk about permanent magnets and how that works. So good question. But we get into trouble when we talk about, again, you have to have a model for that. Can you tell me what your video talked on? Can you tell me what video you talked on flat Earth so I can share it with some of my friends? The one I talked about it was last week, I believe. Today is the 15th. So if you look at November -7, that's 8th, November 8th, I believe, would be a Friday. 8 plus 7 is 15, yep. So November 8th, I talked with, I can't remember his name. He's got a nickname, but he's a guy from Australia. He and I talked about it. The whole flat Earth thing, again, is... no, I don't have a video specifically about that. I do want to put a video about it, but the upshot of the video is going to be very simple, and that is it was invented as a prank. People said, let's go on the internet and create this, just like let's create something that says something, and like crop circles. They went out and made crop circles. People couldn't figure out how they made them. They appeared too quickly. They said it was too symmetrical to be human-made in such a small amount of time. How could they do it without landing? So it was like... So that was a whole thing that was a prank. The prank then, of course, will attract people, and some people will start to get into it. And they just do it for a big game. It's just a game to them. So that's what it is. But the problem is that game is being used by big physics and big cosmology and big science to politically suppress anybody who's against global warming, who's against relativity, who's against the Big Bang. Everybody has the right... Everybody, I'm going to say this right to your faces. Everyone has the right to think and do what they please as long as they're not hurting anybody else. And they are allowed to try to say, yes, there were ancient astronauts, and here's why, and here's all the evidence I have. That's fine. Go for it. We have to keep it open. We have to, I'm not a person who really believes that myself, but I will support a person 100% to go and do that. I have friends who are creationists. I have friends who are atheists. I have friends who are different religion, different political bents, conservative, progressive, the whole thing, all of the liberal, all of the middle of the road. But the rule is, we say, is science. We can all talk about it. If you have evidence for something, go for it. Look for it. That's why I support the electric universe. Do I subscribe to a lot of that myself? Personally, no. But do they have some really good stuff? Yes, personally, that's my opinion. But do I support their right to do it and to say what they do and to write papers and have conferences? 100%. I will stand up, just like with free speech. If somebody's saying that the Earth's flat, I will stand next to everybody and says they have the right to do that, even if it's a prank. Okay, this is a question. I wrote a paper on this along with Robert Berger. Is it true that the southern hemisphere is expanding faster than normal? Yes, it is. It's absolutely true. And why that is a mystery, but we have one, my conjecture, along with a friend of mine, Robert Berger. We wrote a paper in 2017 at the CMPS conference. If you go to our website, if you go and look up D. Hilster and the abstracts, you'll see one of them. About the I think I do, but I think the problem is the Wikipedia PHP code is busted because I had to upgrade it. I'm a computer programmer. I do all this stuff myself, and unfortunately, without all this help, let's see. I'll look up myself here, and there's a paper on it. The Hilster. Let me go and show you this. And the paper is. There he goes. Look at that. Dave D. Hilster wrote a paper about it. And I think it's got busted graphics on it. So when it comes up, hello. Anyways, oh no, it's not. There we go. Oh, okay. So I'll put that in the chat here. There we go. Anyways, the explanation we have is here's mass increase. I'll click on this and see if I can get this a little bit bigger. There we go. Basically, mass increase, according to our model, is that atoms are blown apart, the nucleons, and of course we have the electrons, and I'm going to talk about it in regular terms. I'm not going to talk about it in our models, our names for it. They're going through space, and that the magnetic field in the Earth is actually traveling. G1 particles, which are the same as gravity, same as light, all that stuff, are traveling around like this, and they are entering the southern hemisphere at this time, and that there's when the magnetic field flips, the directions of the flows of those particles change. Those particles do get recombined. So if you see here in the bottom here, you see atoms deconstructed here, atoms reconstructed here inside the Earth. James Maxwell thinks it's in the D layer that happens. And the reason it's doing it more on our conjecture is the reason it's doing more on the southern side is that the way the flow has been flowing more times than when they flip, more times going from the southern part than from the northern. Totally from a model of ours, totally a conjecture, but the difference with what we're saying is we have a model for light, we have a model for gravity, we have a model for all that stuff, we have a model for the atom, and we know what its particles and its parts are, how they behave amongst each other, and why they behave that. So it was one of the things Robert Berger subscribes to our particle model. He likes that model himself, and so that would be the answer to that. Why does the Earth ring like a bell when tested Simon? That's for geologists, not myself. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and see where we are. Maybe Birkeland currents. Okay, talking about that. All right. A true diet study has never been done, and no one. Scott Ferguson, you can say it all you want. As I say in science, your words are not magical. Because you say a true diet study has never been done, that's absolutely false. There is a clinical study done with 60 patients who had extremely debilitating heart disease and cancer. Some of them were told they were going to die, and the people who stayed on the diet actually saw either the cancer go away or the heart disease go away and lived for many years. So that's not true. Again, please, people, don't talk and just say it. It's not. Again, you can say what you want until you go and read about it, and the studies are all here, including that study. It's very famous. Whether people want to listen to it or read it or understand it, that's one of the biggest problems in science. In fact, that's what my latest video is that I have not finished for 2 months now. It's basically based on one problem we all have, and that is not taking the time. So when David D. Hilster says go to nutritionfacts.org, and there are actual real double-blind studies with diet, and that one diet is the best diet, and you don't go and you investigate it, and you just continue to talk and say those things, then all I can tell you is you're being dogmatic and you're not being a critical thinker, and you're not going to learn ever with that kind of attitude. So, sorry, Scott. Sorry. I'd argue that meat is in fact environmentally damaging than mass monoculture cropping. Well, yeah, there's actually Cowspiracy. Go see Cowspiracy. Cowspiracy. Talk all about that. Cowspiracy was very interesting, actually. In the film, he was looking actually at cows, and it's very interesting. And it ends up looking at diet, and then he ends up looking at diets that have studies from nutritionfacts.org. He and other places like that. He looked at the real studies and found out that the Diabetes Association, when the movie was being made, was actually recommending diets that were shown to cause diabetes. He went in the film, if you watch Cowspiracy, it's great, one of those Michael Moore moments where he sat in front of the CEO asking questions, and finally plop the pile of papers that showed that the diets that they were recommending for diabetes were in fact causing diabetes, and they shut the interview down. A year, I think less than a year later, the Diabetes Association changed their diet completely to be a plant-based diet because we know that diabetes 2 is in fact a plant-borne disease. It didn't really exist until we started eating meat in the 20th century, when our technology got ahead of our smarts. Here we go. Johnny Dong, Axeman, exactly. We can, let's see, it's probably talking about something here. Axeman, exactly. We can find countless studies proving Einstein right and disproving everything Dave says. So should we believe those studies? You can't just take studies that you agree with, and et cetera, et cetera. We can find countless studies proving Einstein right. Okay, no, you can't. Okay, Johnny, Einstein himself will disagree with what you say. We can find studies that proving Einstein right. There's no study and no theory that's right. All that we have are theories that agree a lot with the current observable data or don't agree a lot with. Basically, we have theories. Some are better than others. Some are better in some areas than others. But there's no such thing as proof for any theory, ever. And Einstein says that. He said, you can show support for any of my theories all day long. It'll just take one to show it wrong. And we already have that, of course, with particle accelerators show that every day. There's no mass increase for special relativity. You can throw that out. GPS shows special relativity doesn't work. Ring gyroscopes by our chief scientist from MIT with a PhD in Einsteinian special relativity showed immediately after she got out of school, she was totally disappointed to find out that special relativity fell apart and cannot be used when it's supposed to be in ring gyroscopes, which we use everywhere. Also, the idea of disproving everything David says. So, should we believe those studies? It's not believing them. There is no theory in the history of science and physics in the modern physical world that has been so disproved, showed wrong, to show in the sense that its predictions are wrong by over 10,000 people around the world, from people with PhDs in relativity to NASA scientists to professors of physics, of engineering, of laymen. Just literally, we can guess, we're probably guessing around 10,000. We have, I think, 6,000 books and papers that show Einstein wrong. I mean, you don't have that happening with Newton's force laws, for instance. Again, I'm not going to talk about, guys, read up on it, read the China study, go to nutritionfacts.org. Stop. When I hear people who like science, like people here tonight, talk about nutrition, they talk about it the same way mainstream science talks about relativity and the Big Bang and particle physics. That's what I hear from you guys, because the difference between me and you, most of you, not all of you perhaps, is I've read about it. At 53, I've ended up in the hospital with a very low-fat diet, eating what I thought was healthy. I read about the China study. I read about reversing heart disease. I read about blue zones. I saw the Forks Over Knives documentary. I changed my diet, and guess what happened? My heart disease went away. Was that just for me? No, it's happened to millions of people with this diet. That has happened. Again, here's another. I'm sorry. This is you guys are talking points. You don't have any science to back what you say up. What'd you do? Read it from somebody? You got to be careful, folks. I appreciate all you being here, but folks, come on. Here is a person to look up. This guy has great videos. Oops, I put it in the wrong place. I'll put it up here on the banner. This guy, look him up on YouTube. He has great videos debunking all this stuff about animals and we did this. Listen, all of these, look at this guy, Mike the Vegan. And Mike as in this kind of Mike. Put a mic in front of the vegan. He does absolutely great videos. The problem is everybody talks, I won't say that, out there, wazoo, basically, and they don't have science to back up anything they're talking about. Joe Rogan. Oh, I heard Joe Rogan. He says, these people are, no, Joe Rogan is financed. Joe Rogan's biggest donor is a meat company. No lie. So careful, folks. What you read about all these things about omnivores and that we have the teeth, no, our intestinal tracts are frugivores, actually, and vegetables and fruits. Our teeth are made for chewing up and grinding up plants. Folks, you can say all you want. Look at the science. The number one thing we humans do wrong in science is we don't read. We listen to our uncle. We read an article by people who are sponsored by the meat industry. We look at studies. The studies by meat industries do things and tricks that if you go to nutritionfacts.org, they will show you that. Guys, your words are not magic. Just because you say it, just because you heard it, just because your uncle said it, just because your friend who's a nutrition. My doctor told me that my heart disease was genetic. Today, I have proof I have no heart disease. I have none. My veins are perfectly clear. I have 0 heart disease. Now, why is it that a doctor told me it was genetic? And why is it that a friend of mine whose father was sent home in August, I'm not kidding, a person who works at my company, I wrote my story for my company who has about 30,000 people. I work for LexisNexis, supercomputer department. They have a health newsletter. I sent out my story. A lady read it. Her mom was a diabetic for 15 years. She tried veganism, which vegan diets are not healthy diets. And those people go on vegan diets can be just as unhealthy. It's not a whole plant-based diet. It's very different. She went on, her mom went on vegan, tried vegan, didn't work, tried a whole plant-based diet. 3 months later, she went to the doctor. The doctor says, you can go home. There's no diabetes. You have to take off your medicine. It's gone. Her father didn't believe any of this for 2 years. In August of this year, he called up his daughter, who is, she's older, and he's probably in his 70s. And his doctor at the hospital says, go home, you're going to die in 2 to 5 days. No lie. 2 to 5 days. He went, called his daughter up, who is a whole plant-based, and she says, look, I don't have time to plan your funeral and cook a different meal because we cook the way we do. You're going to have to eat our meals. 2 days later, after he got to the house, he was supposed to be dead. He felt better than he had in like years. And a week later, he was convinced, and he has never been off that diet. 2 months later, he said he's never felt better than 30, it was like 30 or 40 years ago. Now, you can say what you want, but I read about it. I look at it. Mike the Vegan, he has lots of great analysis of all those things. So come on, guys. No offense, but just don't say words to me with nothing to back it up. And I'm not here going to do that because Mike the Vegan does that, nutritionfacts.org does it. But just like when you come to me and say, Einstein's right, Dave, and you're wrong, you can say that all day long. I will talk about that because that's my area. I can talk about diets, but what frustrates me is people just throw this out. Oh, this. Oh, this. And all of those studies normally are put out by the industry, the egg industry, the dairy industry, the meat industry. Those are the ones who do it. So let's just stay off of that. Axeman, I couldn't find his YouTube channel. Who's that? Oh, somebody asked me, let me go up here. Let's see, original diet of man was, yes, that's pretty much true. We were meat, we weren't eating meat. We were being eaten most of the time. That's why we could run very fast, but our vision was so we could see things. Yeah, we were pretty much made for that. Let's see if we can go up. Let's see. Just for your curiosity, fake meat is great for the planet. It's not great for people. It's got coconut oil in it to make it sizzle and all that stuff. Coconut oil, like any oils, don't believe me, go to look up oils on nutritionfacts.org. Oils are 100% fat, not good for you. So yes, if you eat those Impossible Burgers, you're still going to die, but you're going to save the planet. Now, somebody I think said, what do you... I think it's Bill Gage. I think it was a question there. Somebody said. I'm sorry, looking through here. Okay. Yeah, there was somebody who had mentioned, what do I think of Bill Gage? I think it's Gagey, or... I apologize, folks. I'm especially reading this. It's like, man, there's just been so much blue zones. Well, there was somebody who said something about that, so I apologize. But I do, Bill Gage, he actually did some videos. If you want to have some humorous videos, just look up him. I'll show it to you. In fact, he really had a war against my father and I. He just went at us. It was sad, actually, because, I enjoy some of his videos, but he said just lots of things where he just had no idea what he was talking about. My father and I's model. He clearly didn't. Let me get this off here. Again, if you want to come on board, I do have some brave souls once in a while that want to do that. I am totally open to talk about anything. I will not get mad at any idea. But let me show you here. Oh, here we go. Yes, sirree. Oh, we did 1, 2. All right. I've got to probably go off. Hold on. Let me get this away. I've got to bring this up on a different tab. Hold on. Do that. Bring that up. Nope. Bill Gage. There we go. We'll bring him up. There we go. And if you look at it, here's one, David Hill's Gravity Theory on Trial. Yeah, of course, if you look at the graphic for this, I don't know if I can make this bigger. Yeah, maybe I can. There we go. Let's go down here. There we go. Here we go. It's John Chappelle. He calls it John Chapel. He's making a joke, I guess. Gravity, G1, G2 particles. So he did that one. David Hill's Magnetic Theory on Trial. Not really mine, actually. It's actually Bill Yonel Deneu's. And then, of course, Dave D. Hilster's Hacked. He's using all these clever words that we use. Our book is called Universe. Part of the title is Universe Hack 3.0. But basically, here's another one here. Oh, he's got me in a halo here. That's pretty cool. Let's see if I can get that bigger. Yeah, there we go. And what's sad about it is he really doesn't look at the content. He shows very clearly he has absolutely no idea what our model's about. In fact, he has if I can find it, let me see if I can get here. If I can find it, I'm going to.
There's
mute
always
it,
a
sorry.
reason to say.
I'm going to mute that. I'm going to bring it down so you don't see that. But see if I can find, he has this, I'll let this go through. He has a diagram of our model with the particles. I don't know if it's in this one. It may be. But it clearly shows that he does not understand the model. Oh, yeah, yep, here it is. This is really funny. Okay. And again, I don't have any problem people arguing against our model. I mean, we know some of the problems with our model. I mean, the gravitonic model we have, and its ability to have gravity within inside a big object like the Earth. It's not problematic, but here's his diagram of, he calls it first the Hilster ether, which is absolutely not true. Let me tell you why this guy is so far off. I mean, ether is a theory of particles that are pretty much stationary and like a gas, just like air molecules. So you have air molecules. I'm going to take these earbuds out since no one's joining me here today. You have air molecules, and those air molecules. So if you looked at these particles, they would just be floating around, and they would hit each other, and then you would have waves, just like you have waves that are coming from my mouth and making waves through the air that go into this microphone, transmitted through electrical signals through you, through getting to you. Now, if you look at, so that's the first thing. It's not an ether theory. We don't have an ether theory. So that's wrong. He doesn't even understand the concept of ether. Second thing is, he says a bunch of particles, and it's ether. Well, the particles in our model are not like he's shown at all, because we have a G1 particle, G2 particle, N1, N2. So he just took them and made colors out of them and made them the same. And Bill Gates may have some interesting philosophical things he says, but when it comes to critical thinking or to look into it, he has the same problem as I say most everyone, and a lot of people here do with diet, is the same thing, is they don't read, they don't look into it. If I tell them that there is a clinical study about that is the only clinical study shown to reverse heart disease, for instance, and cancer and diabetes, people will say, no, there isn't such thing. You can't just say it. You don't look at it. When someone tells me something, I go and read it. I go get a book. I read it. I go Google, I read it, and I read a lot about it. I read about the positive and the negatives about things. And then I weigh for myself, using my own critical mind, what I think is ends up what I believe is closest to the truth. So that's our problem. We get dogmatic. I don't know what it is about. I think the thing about diet is that people want to justify their bad habits. So they don't want to know that they're eating junk and that they're killing themselves. I mean, that's okay. I'm not here to preach. But it's science. And if you want to ask me, I will, tell you. So Bill Gates, in my opinion, has no ability to debate, has no ability to look at a theory and understand it. When I look at Jeff Yee's theory, I look at it and I study it. I try to understand what he's saying. When I look at James Carver, his theory, I read his book. He sent me another book. I read it. I try to figure out what he says. He has a very different idea of what gravity is. And so, we have to be really, really careful. So please, folks, do me a favor. Read, investigate before we go and talk about things. That's all. So, let's see. We do not care about your cherry-picked clinical studies. Nope, I don't think so. That's pretty funny. Cherry picked? No, they're not cherry picked. I mean, the problem is there are no other clinical studies with diets that show these kinds of things. Again, you have to understand what the scientific method is when you do studies with diet. You have to understand what the actual results are, and all that. And really, what happens is this kind of argument is, if it was cherry-picked, you'd have to tell me how it is cherry-picked, which you're not. So this is an emotional response. And here's a couple of reasons I know it's an emotional response. We do not care So do not care is in capital letters about your cherry-picked clinical studies, explanation bias. This is an emotional response. This is a perfect example of if a person was really solid about their ideas, you don't see me getting all mad about this. I don't. I mean, it doesn't matter what you say. It's not what I'm saying. It's what I've read, and I have proof with my own body and what happened with me. My grandfather died at 53. My grandfather died. My great grandfather died at 53. My grandfather died at 60. I am now 60 years old, and I am in great shape. So we have to stop. Emotional responses. They're not scientific. They're just not. So, this is another one. This is justification for bad habits. That's what it is. So, what it doesn't really matter. I mean, you have the choice if you want to eat stuff, and if we want to, we know what it does to the planet. We know that the United Nations has said point blank, was either last year, I think it was last year, that if we do not switch to plant-based diets, our Earth is not going to sustain our population. It's unsustainable. We know that. So again, I don't know what to say to you guys. All right. Let's see if we can go back to some science here. I don't know why we get on diet and stuff. Okay, what time is it anyways? We started at 9. It's coming up to 11. Oh, my goodness. Well, anyways, let me see here. Let's put up some, if you haven't seen my movie, it's really, really great. This is not a shameless plug. It's a really good movie. It's very entertaining. Even if I screened it to general audiences. They loved it, and they didn't even know anything about Einstein being right or wrong. It's really a really great, if you want to get exposed to some of what I'm talking about in the dissident science world. Science Woke is probably the best place you can go. That's why we came up with it. It took us a year and a half to come up with that website. So if you're new to this area, and you want to find out the problems of big science, how to become science woke, then you can do so. I do have also on my own website, dhilster.com. I don't know if I have that here. I think I do. Oh, yeah, I do. So if you go to my website, you can read some of the articles and some of the things. You can read about my own case. I am, let's see, on Forks Over Knives. Forks Over, hey, people are going on. Oh, Tom Brady, he's on whole plant-based diet, and he has to be in his 40s and still goes here. Let's see here. I'm going to go to, so even though you don't want to hear about it, or those who do, if you go to my website, dhilster.com. It's my personal website. I write some things about it. The diet, let's see, where's mine? Here it is. My diet was featured on on Forks Over Knives, which is a documentary. It was back in 2015. My story, been read quite a lot, and but it's one of the success stories of there's Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy. There's all kinds of. There are now plant-based diets, doctors. So there's all kinds of stuff. So if you want to read about that, I'm here just to point you in directions. If you don't care about it, great. Eat what you want. Do what you want, of course. Let's see. For those who want to know about a particle model, that's the particle youtube.particle.guru. My father talks about that. Of course, you have my website, which you're watching right now, if you're on YouTube. And I do see people also, I guess, I now stream to the John Chappelle and my YouTube channels. So you want to take a look at that. Also, for those who are interested in really much more heavy scientific cosmology and physics, naturalphilosophy.org. Every Saturday, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, you can get into some pretty heavy discussions about physics and cosmology. That's a lot of fun. led by Franklin Hugh, one of the people in our organizations. So I think I'm going to make that a night. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on people's cases at all with the diet, but I will not lie to people. I'm not going to tell you what my goal always is to, in science, tell you what I really believe from my own experiences. So, Ken Wheeler would eat you alive, David. No, I've actually talked with Ken Wheeler, and we had some pretty good discussions, so that didn't happen. And I think that's pretty sad. I mean, if that's the kind of, this isn't a scientific attitude. It's more of, being right. Being right is what you're looking for in life. If I look for what I try to find truths in the world. Being right doesn't mean anything. But so the statement of Ken either would eat you alive, to me, it's Johnny, I'm sorry, it's not a good attitude in science. It's just not. It's not interesting to me. Again, I've talked directly with Ken. I know some people who know Ken and follow Ken, and I'm totally for the work he does. He and I have talked about things we both don't agree with. There's some of the things I talk with him is about his vocabulary he uses. So, and I think he's got his own vocabulary, and I've talked, Lori Gardi, who's a good friend too, and I like her work too. I have disagreements with these people, but, eat alive? Oh, come on. I mean, that's, all right. Let's see, anything else? We've seen Einstein, Macron, and EU equation wise. Again, Darkness Falls. It's EU. It's newer to the idea that Einstein's wrong. 10 years ago, when we had a joint conference where they were laughing at us. No offense, but that was very true. And so we have to understand people evolve, and everyone does. I didn't know about diets until I was 53 and almost died, and I wanted to figure out how I could make myself better. So yeah, I mean, we all evolve. I didn't know Einstein was wrong until I was in my mid 30s, early 1990s. No, it was early 30s when I met Dr. Carzani. So Einstein's math equations are wrong. The CMPS has way more information on this, actually. It's just because our group has done this for a much longer time. And we have, Dr. Carzani. I think I have his website here. You go to autodynamics.org. But this is neutrinos. But if you go to autodynamics.org, in my opinion, for special relativity, is not a better argument against it than Dr. Carzani. But there's a lot of good ones. My dad has actually a video on it, special relativity itself. It's got thousands of views on it. So that also is a good place for it. Well, look, somebody liked it. That's good. Good night. Thank you. Let's see. Let's see what else here. People on side. I'm not. I eat everything. Laugh a lot. Maybe he was being a joke about it. Thanks, Dave. Good stream. Thanks for answering all my questions. I will try to do that. Since I meant literally, not figuratively, I'm not sure what that means. Because vegans are not a whole plant-based diet. Just saying, vegans are not healthy diets. I'm going to repeat that again. Vegans are not whole plant-based diets. All right, that's why. I don't take any supplements. You get all the. Oh, here's some answers to people's questions. Gorillas, what do they eat? Elephants, what do they eat? Rhinoceroses, they're pretty darn giant. How about dinosaurs? Weren't there plant eaters that were sort of large? So, how about blue whales? I think they eat algae. Anyways, interesting. Go back anymore. I think that's about it. Anyways, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. Again, I'm not here to do anything but argue intellectually. I'm not, you can do what you want, think what you want, believe what you want, but you're not going to get me to say or believe something I don't believe is true. that I've studied a lot myself. So, greatly appreciate everybody's participation, new comments. Ken Wheeler isn't using his own language. It's a very old language, much spoken, forgotten knowledge. Sorry, don't agree with you. We've talked about it. I mean, if he'd want to come on and talk about it, I talked about it and we argued about it. I think one of the things that keeps him from getting even more people interested is that he's developed their own vocabulary, and again, without a model of the universe, it's a vocabulary, it's a system. He's developed a system. Now, whether or not that system is the way the universe really works is a different story, and that's what I'm saying. We study too, Dave. Absolutely. But I'm saying the things that you're saying to me don't show some of those things. So, what can I say? I can't say more than that. But you're totally, and I think the other thing is too is, I don't make the argument necessarily because I've read more about it. I've read a lot about it, and my guess is I've read more about diet than almost everybody here because I am very much into that. But the way I always say it is read for yourself, but the problem is people don't do that. And that, like I said, that's what my next video is supposedly about. Well, it's, again, I keep talking about it, but that's what it's about. It's about people who don't investigate it. When someone comes up and says something to me, I go and I look at it and I look at the arguments. And you have to look about where those arguments are coming. If they're coming from Joe Rogan, who's funded by the meat industry with a lot of money, and he says plant-based diets are a joke, you have to understand and look at everything. And I think what I say is, don't believe me, go read. But I point you to places where I believe there's some real information. But people don't. So if you don't, you're going to be where you want. You're going to be dogmatic about it and not open to it. So Faraday, Maxwell, Tesla are all the same words. They just have been spoken under years. The answer to that question is we have no model for gravity. We have no model for light. We have no model for magnetism. We have no model for electricity. I'm going to say it over and over again. Faraday didn't have it. Maxwell didn't have it. Tesla didn't have it. They had equations. They had nomenclatures. They didn't have physical models. So I don't agree with that statement. V Darkness won't reply to your statement that you made 10 times. Anyways, why were hunter-gatherers able to survive for eons with meat in their diet? You can survive. You just don't have a healthy diet. Here's a myth. You want to hear a myth? That Eskimos are healthy and they only eat meat. They're not. They have heart disease in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. They have heart disease. It's absolutely true. You can survive on almost anything. I mean, if it's got some nutrition, it's whether or not you want to be healthy and whether or not the millions and millions of years of evolution with our bodies, which are plant-eating bodies, is that, you want to try something else. It's like putting diesel into a gasoline-running engine. It's not going to work very well. So, physical model is a Tesla plasma ball. Well, no, it's something that's happening that people can put together and they can see it's pretty cool, but they can't explain what it is. So I will just keep coming at you, folks. Anyways, I'm going to let everybody go. Again, I appreciate it. I don't take any of this personally, but I will not let up. Go read for yourself. And I disagree with you because on the diet stuff because like I said, I've read it. I've seen the results. So anyways, thanks much, Tommy Bird. Thanks, Johnny Doughboy. Darkness Falls. I know we get at it. Ray Carr, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated all of you. Everyone take care. Good night. And, good luck. I'll be back here. And hopefully I'm going to get a video out pretty soon. Been busy. I'm going to be moving from this great place here. So that's one of the reasons I've been by. All right, folks. We'll see you later. And let me get rid of this here. The comment, put up a banner live. Remember, if you do want to join me next time, go to live.dissident.science and you can, we'll discuss on the air. And I have no problem with it. I'm a nice guy, even if we disagree. All right, everyone, take care. Greatly appreciate it. Good night.